No. The amount of money a sport gets is dependent mostly on what it costs to run the sport. For example, the sport of tennis, if you take away the cost of surfacing and maintaining the courts and nets, which is covered by the district, the cost of tennis is going to be for tournaments, for balls. Kids usually bring their own rackets. It's pretty low. If you look at the cost of football, it's very expensive because of all the gear you wear. Baseball, you've got catcher's gear, you've got all the things that go into, there's game balls, there's practice balls, there's, this year we had to split the cost of a $4,000 batting cage. Cross country, very cheap. Kids have a pair of tennis shoes and they've got a uniform and that's it. So it really depends. Swimming is probably the most expensive sport. That's mostly because the district covers that, but or at least the district covers the most expensive part, that's maintaining a pool. And you look at what it takes to do the chlorine and to keep it heated and things like that, literally tens of thousands of dollars a month. So that's how sports get funded. It just depends on what they cost to run. Money comes from one of three places. It comes either from the district. They pay to maintain the facilities mostly, not all the time. They pay most head coaching stipends, and they'll pay for electricity, lights, whatnot. Their money comes from the boosters, and then money comes from the athletics department, which we collect that through a gate at many sports like football, basketball, baseball. So if you compare basketball and you compare badminton, by far basketball is a much more expensive sport to run. They go through each boys and girls team will go through about $2,000 in tournaments a year. Basketballs are $50 a ball. They have home and away uniforms. They've got more coaches involved. We've got 3 teams on each, 3 teams for the boys, 3 teams for the girls, varsity, JV, and freshmen. So there's certainly coaches, that adds up to thousands of dollars. Badminton's got a much smaller budget. Badminton has the cost of rackets and birdies. We have 1 badminton coach. We'd like to expand that to 2 because this year we saw an increase in our badminton size. And so we're now, instead of 1 coach for 34 girls, we'd like to get 2 coaches to help out. But it's a lot cheaper sport to run. Yes and no. Badminton before this year, we've literally gone to every February wondering if we're going to have enough girls to fill out a ladder. When I say a ladder, I think the number is 18, I think is what makes a ladder. It could be 15, but 18, let's say 18. We've gone into the season saying, are we going to have 18 girls? It's been that way for probably the last 5 years. This year, all of a sudden, we had a spike, and I attribute that mostly to Coach Becerra. I thought she did a great job. She got excitement and energy in the program. So all of a sudden, our number swelled to over 30. She and I talked about uniforms, and I said, hey, I'm happy to talk to the boosters about getting uniforms, but before we invest in the uniform and spend several $1,000s on them, we got to see these numbers for badminton are going to maintain. In other words, are we going to drop back down to 15 girls next year? Is this a one-time thing? So boosters are very interested in doing that. Before Miss Becerra came along, we haven't had a badminton program really help boosters with fundraising. Badminton has never run a concession shift in the last 7-8 years at a football game where they make a lot of their money, whereas every other sports team does do a concession shift for a particular game. Just because they haven't had, it hasn't been a popular sport, there hasn't been parent involvement, so we're hoping that starts to change. If that maintains a change, then absolutely, we'll do uniforms, but we need to see a consistency there. Well, we'll never have equality in terms of dollar amount across all sports. It wouldn't make sense. Football gets a lot of money from athletics and boosters, and then they raise at least equal to that on their own. For example, tonight's the Burger Blitz. It just costs too much money. I mean, the recertification for helmets and shoulder pads every offseason is about $13,000. That's just to take a helmet and a shoulder pad, all of them, and send them away and have somebody say these things are certified, and they have to be certified in order to be used. So you're talking about $13,000 just for that aspect. So it'll never be equal in terms of numbers. Is it fair? I think that's the better question. I think we are generally fairly fair, if that's a phrase. I think if you ask coaches individually, they would probably, there's different coaches say, well, you know, we don't get this, but that team gets that. And I understand that. You're going to advocate for what you get. Soccer would like to add, boys soccer would like to add another assistant coaching position. And do I think it's fair that he gets that? Absolutely. And I pulled this out when we were talking about this. We just so happen to have your 2015, 2016 booster budget. And we're trying to identify where our weaknesses are and where we need to improve in that area and make things that they're more fair for all the teams. So equal, no. Fair, yeah, we'd like to be there.
Every 3 years we order uniforms and basketball, so it comes out to approximately $8,000 to $10,000.
It usually takes about $30,000 to $40,000 a year to run the football program.
This is my second year coaching badminton, and this year I got $500 budget.
So in the past we've done car washes, so we do a car wash that my basketball players will put on, and usually we've been able to raise about $5,000 for that. In the past we've done fundraising dinners and hors d'oeuvre parties, but in the last year, because of what the boosters did with the Boo Bash and money that we got from the crab feed, we actually did not have to do a ton of fundraising, which was really, really nice.
We usually do 3 to 4 fundraisers a year to fundraise money for the various things, equipment, helmets, shoulder pads, our huddle account. There's just any gear we use out here, sleds and things like that.
Didn't do any fundraisers this year. The boosters did put on a fundraiser, and if we sold extra amount of tickets than what we were required to do, that would go directly to our fund. So that fundraiser is over, and I don't know the exact numbers. I don't know if we got extra money from that, but I am hoping to do some fundraising for next year because uniforms would be nice.
Well, it depends on each year, honestly, it depends. So if we ask for more and they have it in their budget, we're able, I think every 3 years now they're gonna help buy our uniforms. And so that will, for my team, that's about $2,000 or $3,000. But then on a year that I'm not getting the uniforms, I'm getting a couple thousand for my tournaments and for my assistant coaches.